Computer. All righty, and here we go. I am so excited today to be able to talk with Brandon Phelps. So Brandon and I met when I started doing the Habit Finder, that assessment that's on my website that we did. Brandon was the first person that actually called me and went over my profile with me, with the assessment and my thought patterns with me. And he was so kind and so wonderful and made me feel so welcome at a time that I was feeling extremely vulnerable in my life. So Brandon was just amazing. And he has since, so we've stayed connected through the coaching program and through different things over the years. It's been, I don't know how long it's been. It's been a couple of years. And I've
Yeah.
been in and out, not as consistent. Brandon's super consistent, and he's had some changes in his life, and he is now developing his own program, which I'm so excited to see because he is amazing. He's one of my favorite coaches, one of my favorite people to talk to. I always feel like I can just open my heart and be completely open with him. So with that, I'd just like to introduce you to Brandon and
Thank you.
tell us a little bit about yourself and a brief overview of your probe. Introduce yourself.
Well, boy, it's an interesting thing to go through so many changes in such a short time, the last few years, and then think of trying to describe who I am and tell people about who I am and what I just who I am. It's a really interesting concept because I've let go of a lot of what I thought I had to be, that most of my life I just needed to be a certain kind of a person, and I've learned to kind of surrender a lot of that. So it's an interesting question, like tell people about yourself. I love me. I love like all the talents and the gifts that I've been able to understand about myself. I got into coaching because I love people. And I used to be, it's an interesting road that got me to coaching. I was a painting contractor for many years, and I was really good at painting
I didn't know
and
that.
I do it really fast. You didn't know that?
No, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Not at
yeah.
all.
It's you look at my path that like you look at where I am with coaching and look at this path. The last few years has been pretty, it makes a lot of sense as to where I started and where I got to now. But before that, it's this really broken and disjointed journey until you look at how I've been able to love people throughout all of that.
Yeah,
But the interesting thing about painting was it was just me. I was on my own, and I'd have these really great consultations with people and the clients and talking about colors and decor and lighting and shades and different things like that.
cool.
And then I was just alone. I was alone for however long the job was, like a week long or a couple of weeks or whatever. It was just on my own. So I'd listen to audiobooks and I'd learn cool things about the way the brain thinks and about how people respond to difficulties and things, because I had a lot of that stuff that I was still trying to figure out as I'm a painting contractor. But I was alone so much of the time. And then the last conversation I would have was like walking through, and here's what they liked and here's what they did well, and then they'd pay me, and that was great. And so I was doing okay with it, but I was just like dying inside a little bit as I was going. And I did it for like about 16 plus years, in this little small mountain community that we lived in at the time. And I was really good at it, had a great reputation in that community, but it wasn't fulfilling in the way that I wanted it to be. I left there I was thinking that I wanted to go into nursing, because I would be working more with people and helping them. For a few different reasons, that path didn't really work out. I went back to construction because I could make a lot more in construction than I was making in the kind of entry level medical stuff,
Yeah,
and just kind of bounced around at a few different things, went back into painting. Um, and I had a kind of a side hustle that I was working on and I was failing at miserably. And I was at an event and I heard this guy, his name's Dave Blanchard, speak at this event. I didn't know who he was at the first. I didn't even know what he did, but he was a really compelling speaker and he talked a lot about a lot of the struggles that I was going through. And after that event, I went home and I looked him up online, and I kind of had to dig around a bit to be able to find who he was and the company that he worked for. And I found the company and I called him up and I said, "Hey, I just talked to this guy, or I just heard this guy talk, and I think I need a coach." And the gal on the other end, her name's Nikki. Nikki's still there. Nikki still works with Dave Blanchard and at Habit Finder. And Nikki was awesome. She's like, great, let me put you in touch with Paul. And I talked to Paul. I didn't know who Paul was. I didn't know that Paul was Dave's son and Paul
Yeah.
was the president of the company and all these different things. Anyway, I hired Paul, had a great engagement with Paul, and he helped me see things differently. But when I hired him, I remember telling him specifically, look, I don't know what you do. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you fix my money problems and everything else is going to be fine.
Uh,
And he just kind of laughed at me.
yeah.
And I was like, what? Are you laughing at me?
Yeah.
He kind of laughed and he goes, we don't really do that. What we're going to do is, and then he said a whole bunch of things. And I know what he said now because I've said it myself and I've been a part of the company. But he said, basically, look, we're going to help you with your thought patterns. And those thought patterns are going to be able to change your behaviors. And your behaviors are going to lead to the solutions that you're looking for with all the other problems.
Yeah.
Made perfect sense. But in the moment, it was like, the adults on Charlie Brown, this is going to date me and you and I, but the Charlie Brown, it just sounded like, I'm like, fix my money problems and everything's going to go away. And I hear this wah, 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 and then your problems will be solved. I'm like, okay, great, let's do that. Whatever that is. So hired him, paid a lot of money. I was scared to pay the money, but I worked with him and it did. It
Yeah.
shifted everything. It put me on a trajectory that was so different. And in that process, I didn't even say this out loud, but I remember thinking to myself, like, I am really changing, like fundamentally changing in some things that I didn't think were possible to change. And I'm doing it. And I thought, what if I could help other people do the same thing? That would be really cool. But I didn't say a thing. I didn't tell Paul. I didn't say anything to my wife. I didn't say anything to anybody else. I just kind of held that in because it was terrifying to think of it. To be like that seemed like I was barely making changes here. And the coaching thing, like being a coach or doing what Paul did, seemed way up here that was so far out of reach that I couldn't
Yeah.
even imagine that. So I just kind of put it up on the shelf and just like, oh, that's scary to look at. And years went by and we had some back and forth with Paul and I. And I ended up working for Paul for a little while. He hired me to work in the organization, Habit Finder, and I was an employee of Habit Finder, which is why I met you and that why I called you. And I would we had the database of everybody who had taken the assessment, and I would find the ones that took it in the most recent time, and I'd call up and say, "Hey, you want to talk about your results? This would be kind of cool because it sparked this really cool conversation, and then we could talk more and more about whatever's going on in life and why are these things showing up for you." And it was really fun. It was a really powerful tool, and I love it. And it's just it just opens the door to go really deep into not only what's happening, but why it's happening.
Yeah.
When you start talking about why it's happening, that's where it gets kind of exciting. Like, whoa, I can start to see these things. And it opens up the possibility for really cool conversations like, okay, now you see why it's happening. Do you want to know how to do something about it?
Yeah.
Let's talk and we can go from there. So super cool. I ended up working with Paul for a while. I worked for him about 6 months and then I left to go help some friends start a residential treatment program for adolescents on the autism spectrum. Poured my heart and soul into that way too much. Like I gave without any boundaries and I just gave and gave until I kind of cracked and almost had a kind of a nervous breakdown and just needed to coast for a little bit. And I got a sales job and things were okay. And then Paul called me and we were talking. And he said, we've changed how we do things at Habit Finder. I think you'd really like this process now. It'd be cool if you came and did some more stuff with us and worked with us again. And that's when I told him, I said, I want to be a coach. It's the first time I'd ever said it to anybody.
Oh,
I want to know how to do what you do. And he said, okay, well, let's leverage each other for what we both want. I'll get the sales help and build my company, and you'll get the salary from sales and the commissions, and you'll get some specific training on how to coach. And it was amazing. It
nice.
was super cool because the way they did things, they would have so many leads that would come in and just populate my calendar that I learned to get really, really good at diving in fast without making it feel like it was rushed, to get in deep and then be able to come back out of that to finish that conversation, close all the loops,
Yeah.
and hop out so that I could start the next appointment without it feeling like, wow, we just connected so deeply. This is wonderful. Okay, gotta go. It was
Yeah.
just kind of like, thank you. And I would go in fast and I'd go deep and then I'd come out fast. And it was like, it really honed this ability to have these really meaningful conversations in a sales setting that was all based on connection.
Yeah.
And that's totally my language. That was my jam. And a little thing about me is I hated sales. I never wanted to do sales. Sales in any degree. My dad was a salesman as long as I can remember, and he loved it. And I thought he was crazy because to me, all sales was bothering people.
Yeah.
Like you sit down to dinner and then I come knocking on the door and I interrupt your meal and it's getting cold and you're irritated because I'm there. That's how I saw sales in every aspect. But working with Habit Finder, I learned that it's all about connection. And what I first thought was I'd have to do connection really, really well. And I could do that. I have some really natural gifts for connection and creating a safe place for people to feel comfortable and feel safe. And then we can go really deep and we can talk about some really powerful, sometimes really heavy things. But I would do this and I learned that like it started with me doing connection really, really well. And then it felt like I was like grinding gears, like,
Now I got to
yeah,
close. Now I got to be a closer.
let's talk about the sale. Let's talk about the money and the
Yeah.
transaction. And it was
Now let's
so
close.
gross.
Yeah.
It was just icky. And I hated that. And it was
Feel
like,
ya. I feel ya on that one.
yeah, right. Yeah. It's like such a natural thing because we don't want to bother. And it feels like we just made a real connection. And
Yeah.
this is beautiful. Can we just stay here? Because this
Because
is so warm and
it's not
fuzzy.
that we have any money issues, right? So the
Right.
issues like come right into that close. And it's like
Yes.
our issue that, I learned that in sales with house. It's like my job was just to connect people with the house and to get the work so they could get the house. And I learned
Yes.
that to many people, money, it's just a tool. It's just a
Yeah.
tool to get you something you want. But to me, it's like this emotional, egotistical status.
Yeah.
It's way more than that. So yeah,
It
I
so much is.
so understand that.
Well, and what's interesting too, and I've learned this, really been diving into this. I still have a lot that I'm working through
Yeah,
of diving into some of those past experiences, those adverse experiences that I've had where it taught me to have a certain relationship with money
yeah,
that's really not healthy.
yeah,
It's really not a good, it doesn't serve me in what I'm trying to create and what I'm trying to do. So, in a sense, it's very much like that. I can connect really, really well. But as soon as we talk about money, there's a lot of pain there. And I bring this energy
right.
sometimes to this conversation of kind of like, okay, I love you, you love me. So, um, you want to give me some money? And it's just like this awkward, weird, like it would leave people kind of feeling like, at least my perception was
Yeah,
people would be like, what just happened?
yeah,
And then I would have that conversation about the transaction, and then I'd try to jerk it back into the connection. Hopefully, we'd end the call on a good note.
yeah,
Well, what really changed for me was when I realized that it's all connection. It's all, and I could actually stay in connection through the whole conversation.
yeah,
So, and to me, and I'll dive into this a little bit more later with some of the questions I know you're going to be kind of going in the direction of, but it's love. Connection is just love.
yeah,
And it's that heightened sense of awareness, that agape love.
yeah.
And connection, when it's real connection, it's just I have love, you have love, and we meet together
Right.
in love.
In love. Yeah. And sometimes the money is just the energy that's running between us.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
just awesome. You've shared some amazing things with me about what you want, what you're hoping for, and about some of the things standing in your way. You
yeah,
can see clearly that this program or this process is going to really make a difference for you. And this is how much it is, and this is how you're going to pay it, and this is what you do.
yeah,
And, and then it's no longer sales is no longer an issue of like being ready, kind of bob and weave for whatever objections are going to come up. If there are things that come up, we've connected so well and we're still in connection that like, whoa, something just popped up
yeah,
and the energy kind of shifted. Maybe it's just a story in my head, but I noticed something. Can we talk about that?
yeah,
What happened? Like where are you right now? What are you feeling right now? Oh, I just get so stressed with money. I have this like unreasonable fear. I've got a client that I work with. He's just amazing, successful person. But anytime his money drops a certain amount, either it's below a threshold or he watches his account move in a way that to him triggers this negative feeling, he freaks out.
Yeah.
And he knows this about himself, but he's like, I just have this, like, hey, let's talk about that. Let's
You
talk
can have
about,
the same opposite one. It's like sometimes when your people's account goes up,
yeah,
it's like, oh, that's
that's
uncomfortable.
scary.
I don't know how to manage that. What do I do now? It's like it's
Yeah,
the same energy,
yeah.
but that's
Or
funny.
it's like it's what do I do now? And it's also this feeling of kind of like, whoa, I have more in there than I've had before.
Oh, I'm
I'm
not
gonna do
done.
something that's gonna screw this up. I'm gonna
Yeah,
mess something up now. It's
yeah,
all gonna fall apart.
exactly. Let's go back to where my comfort zone is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 Oh,
So this process of sales became, it was no longer sales. It was all connection. And if you want to flip it, all of connection is sales as well. Even if you don't have a product or service, you're in a sales conversation because sales is just
oh,
presenting something to be accepted.
oh, that's motherhood. I realized that motherhood. I
Yeah.
read this book on how to be women in negotiations, and it's like you negotiate every day. You negotiate with your 2-year-old. You negotiate all the time. I mean, sales is all the time
Yeah.
negotiations with something. It's just the energy's changing. It's
Yeah.
food or money or
Yeah.
product
I
or
like I like that word energy because I've heard this before too from other coaches that have helped me. Why are you worried about money? It's just energy.
yeah,
And at the time, I was kind of like, okay, well, then I need more energy. Give me
yeah,
more energy.
yeah, yeah,
Help me understand how to get more of this energy that you speak of.
yeah.
And then my problems will go
Go away.
away.
Yeah. It's like, oh,
But there is something to that, that it's an energetic expression of value.
yeah.
And I'm receiving value, I'm giving value, and I'm creating and being valuable. So it's an interesting, and again, I'm still working through some of these things, and there's still some deep kind of wounded spaces that I can go in and that I'm doing right now that are kind of activating that kind of like, oh man, there's that feeling again. It's back, and okay, now we got to face this and kind of go through this. So it's been an interesting thing, and I worked for Habit Finder for that second period. I worked for Habit Finder for about 3.5 years. And in that process, like I said, I got really good. I honed my communication and my connection, and it changed my perspective of sales. And I was able actually to take the expertise that I had developed there and help a lot of the coaches that had trained as Habit Finder coaches who were trying to build their business. And many of them would come to me and like, hey, I'm hearing you're doing all these conversations. Can you show me how to do this? I actually had people would come to my office and just sit and
Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
as I did a phone call, as I did stuff, and I had these consultations, and then they take notes, and then they drill me on like, well, you said this, well, what did that mean, or why are you going here? And so it was really kind of a wonderful. I loved that because it felt really good to have something that these people that I looked to as mentors and like you and the other coaches, I'm like, man, you guys, you've put so much learning and energy into being as good as you can to make such a positive difference. And I'm just so impressed with you and I'm so inspired by you. And you're coming to me asking like, how do you do this thing that you do really well? I want to know how to do
How can I
it.
connect with somebody so I can help them?
Yeah.
You
And
know,
it was
it is tough. It's a hard one. It's hard.
it is challenging. And the reason it's so hard, and this is going to go into kind of why I do what I do now and the program that I'm creating, is that we have all these things that are just kind of stuck inside of us. And they came in because of the adverse experiences that we go through. Now, adverse experiences, I'm very intentional with that phrasing because I have this thing in me that's kind of a hesitation to use the word trauma. And the only reason of that is because there are specific credentials and people who have put a lot of effort into understanding the clinical effects and processes to help through trauma. The honest truth is that adverse experiences are a type of trauma, and trauma is a type of adverse experiences.
Well,
So,
there's what do they call that? There's the different types. There's big trauma, little trauma, big T and little
yeah.
T traumas, and there's all the different,
Mhm.
all that. Oh,
So,
my camera
yeah.
goes
So
wonky.
all of that stuff,
Yeah.
it comes in and it creates this noise inside. And our body doesn't speak English. It doesn't have stories. It just knows that something's there. Energetically, we have something in us. Like, and by energy, I mean like when you think about the energy of joy, it's way up here. The energy of depression or sadness is down here. Anger is different. And there's just this energetic expression of emotion. And it gets bound up inside of us when we don't process through that, move through that in a way that's really healthy.
Yeah, that there's a
So,
great book, Power versus Force. Have you read that book? It
no, I
talks
haven't.
about the different levels of energy and where it's actually it puts it into the Hertz level, the vibrational energy of
Mm,
Hertz wording. It's a
wow.
wonderful book. It's a really
Power versus force.
yeah, Power versus Force. In fact, I have the energy level on my wall right next to the tech, so I can look at that. And when I'm talking with people or even with myself, I can pretty much, because I like to meditate and do
Yeah.
things. So if I need to raise my energy level, or if let's say I'm depressed or sad, because I'm not, you don't wake up happy every day, right? But I can listen to certain music or do things in a meditation that raise that energetic to the next level. So I use
Mm,
meditation in that way. And so I use that chart to be like, oh, I need to be at this level of hertz today or whatnot. It's
mm.
pretty cool. I mean, it's very cool. I think
I love that.
it's just super, super cool.
Mm,
So that's where
that's
kind
interesting.
of,
I wrote that down. I'm going to get that book and
no, it's very technical. It's written by a doctor, and it's a technical book. But in the
yeah.
middle of it, it's got the chart. That's the portion
Oh, cool.
that's really cool. So, but
I like
it's
that.
it's not one of those easy reads.
Yeah. I like those. I like the science behind these kind of things because like I didn't go to school to be a therapist or a psychologist or a social worker or those kind of things, but it's my world. And I love understanding from the experts who've put in the effort to research and put together the data. I want to know about it because it's fascinating to me.
So cool.
There's so much information that just helps us understand how to be who we are, how to be us in the best way possible. And when we're us unapologetically and authentically, well, it gives permission for the people around us to be the same,
Yeah, it
to like,
does.
wow,
People
you're
take their
grounded.
walls down. When we're real, they can take their walls down.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
it's interesting. So I want
Yeah.
to start talking about your program a little bit.
Okay.
And I take you through, we've got the 7 stages that I take you through, and we talk about, prayer, meditation, and breath work. And I talk
Mm,
a lot about prayer is asking. That's where we're talking. We say the Lord's Prayer. We
mm,
get up in the morning. We say, "Oh God, please take care of my son." I mean, at the ski, I listen. I work at the ski resort in the wintertime, and I
yeah.
ride up with people. And as I get off the lift of certain runs, it's hysterical because I love studying people, right? And I love talking to
Mm,
people, just like you
mm,
connect with them. And I hear them, "Oh Lord, help me get off the ramp." That's a prayer. Or, okay,
yeah.
help me do this. So, I mean, it's interesting
Mm,
how we ask for things throughout the day. Even when we're saying, "Oh, what do you think I should order at the restaurant?" In some ways, that's a prayer. We're asking for an answer.
yeah.
So prayer is asking.
Mm,
Meditation is sitting down and listening. So we're listening to our body. We're listening to what the universe is telling us, what the body's telling us. We're listening to where we might listen to our bodies. We might feel a pain in a certain way, or when
mm,
we're praying for something like, you know, I get a lot of heart centered or lower family issues, sometimes pain in my heart center, or so I know it's either concern, but if it radiates from my heart, or if it's like in my lower abdomen, it's, oh, I don't feel grounded in my family portion, or usually for me,
mm,
that's what that is. So
yeah.
listening to your body. And then breath work, we use breath work, right, to create the action. So just getting off of a lift, there's somebody that's like, okay, I mean, oh, Lord, get me off the lift. And, so I'll just say, "Oh, just breathe. You got this," or, "It's fine." And they breathe, and then they breathe into action. I find that before, when I'm skiing, when I'm doing something that might be a little like this afternoon, I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to go down this run. It's not my favorite run, but I'm going to go for it." I found myself having to breathe. And then halfway down the run, I was holding my breath, and I'm like, "Oh, you're not skiing well because you're holding your breath. So breathe
Mm,
the turn." So breath work is action. So
yeah.
as you were developing your program and making your transitions into this new life, that you
Mhm.
are developing and creating for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
How did you use the prayer and the breath work and meditation? How do you use those things? Tell us some experiences and some
Mhm.
aha moments that maybe you had with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's very, very, very like aligned with like the way you lined that out is very aligned with what I do now in coaching and what I do for myself as well. And I've learned it through this process of kind of finding these kinds of tools and how to implement that, how to integrate them into this everything. And I teach this in my all of the activities and the coaching. It's presence, breath, movement, and sound. And presence is that mindfulness. It's the meditation, checking in and listening. The breath is the breathing. The breath, we have breath patterns, breathing patterns that will activate our bodies and get us ready for a challenge. And we have breathing that will actually calm us down and stabilize us and ground us. And there's different ways that we can use that breathing, different volumes of breath and different patterns and frequencies. And so breath is this fascinating place. It's a playground of like whatever can happen. I mean, if you've ever studied Wim Hof and all the other people who've learned from Wim Hof and they teach so many different things, there's so many like little tools and little patterns like box breathing, like the Navy SEALs do. And you can put that in your pocket and use it in different ways. Presence and breath together, movement is actually moving your body in ways that will kind of activate that vagus nerve that will send signals to your brain. The interesting thing about that vagus nerve is that it's got all these fingers into the autonomic nervous system, all the automated processes like heart rate and breathing and blinking and all the, digestion, all these different things. And it's got fingers there because when your threat response kicks in, it's got to send a signal and say, we got to get ready. We're going to either start kicking our way out of something or we got to run as fast as we can. Or if it's too bad, we just have to kind of go offline and let things happen because it's going to hurt too much. So fight, flight, or freeze. When that happens, it needs to send a message like, cut off the digestion. That's when people, that's why people puke right before something really scary is happening, or something happens and they void their bowels. And it's like, oh man, this is so embarrassing. But it's actually your body responding to a threat and getting ready, saying, we don't have the energy to worry about carrying this with us. So get rid of it all and run. Well, when that happens, that vagus nerve, when we move in certain ways, like I'll have people twist or I'll have people shake like a wet dog or whatever that looks like in the moment, it activates that system. And the interesting thing about the movement of the vagus nerve is like it's an 80-20. We hear a lot about 80-20 in different applications and things, but 80% of the direction of those signals comes from the body to the brain. So when the body feels something, it sends the message to the brain, and the brain says, is this a threat we need to respond to? Are we okay? What does that mean? So we harness that and we can grab a hold of it and use it in really powerful ways to activate and feel safe and then work in that space of the duality of those two. Like, but I'm just in my living room with Brandon on a Zoom. So I'm actually okay, but I'm feeling a lot. Well, let's look at what I'm feeling. And then the fourth one is sound. It's just sound. Like we make weird noises. Like animals make noises. Like you hear the dogs when they'll shake and then they'll yawn and they just and they make this weird noise. When we make noises, for some reason, there's a lot of science with this and stuff, and I won't go into it, but for some reason, when we make noise, it's almost as though we've done all the work to find what we're looking for, find the emotional charge, find the things that are kind of bound up. We've activated, we're feeling a lot. And when we make sound, it's almost like we're giving ourselves permission to let it go. And we move through it, and it just comes out of us, and it's no longer bound up inside. So we get weird with it. I mean, just like the animals are kind of weird, we don't think that they're weird as much because they're just normal. They're instinctive. They don't hang on to stuff like we do.
No, they don't. They definitely live in the moment. And all your stuff you're talking about, I mean, when you start understanding this stuff and really get into it,
Yeah.
I mean, this is why you know, this is why I don't like medications.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the more you start learning about how your body moves and the vagus nerve and stuff, it's like you start realizing, wow, I have everything I need to heal myself. Not that medicine doesn't help, because
Mhm.
it can. but
Yeah.
rely on it so much, then we have screwed up our bodies, right? And our minds. And I think that's why we have so much more mental health. We're so depressed all the time because we haven't done exactly what you're talking about. We're afraid
Mm,
to talk. We're afraid to scream and yell. Don't yell at
yeah.
somebody. That's rude. It's rude,
Yeah.
and
And there's some conditioning with that too, right? Even everyday things that we're still involved in that sometimes it's not appropriate to use our voice. If you're sitting in a board meeting and
okay.
you're listening about the company's goals and projections and you're feeling a lot of stuff, it's not appropriate to just start screaming
Yeah.
in that room or to stand up and run out of the room as fast as you can. I mean, you wouldn't have employment or you wouldn't be a part of the team
Yeah.
if that were the case because people aren't used to this. People don't know this. And there are healthy ways to do it.
Yeah.
There are ways.
Yeah. So I have
If
a
you're in that place and you're
I have a
feeling
hike
alone,
that I like to go to. And I go
yeah,
up there and there's this little bench. Then I do my little meditations up there outside. And if I'm frustrated, I go up there and just scream. And, my boyfriend thinks, he's like, what are you doing? I go, I'm just going to go scream for a while. And
yes.
that's my, that's my thing. And then, and that's why I love skiing so much because nobody thinks anything of you dropping scared to death and going, and
Yes.
nobody thinks anything of it. So it's a great thing when I'm frustrated to go do that. And I love,
Yeah.
I love
Yes.
that for
It's
me.
so powerful. And when you harness it intentionally and use it intentionally, like you're talking about, like I can feel some stuff, I'm gonna go scream. It changes it from just a random expression to actually a tool that can be like, oh, I'm feeling these things. I know that if I use this tool, it will help me feel kind of regulate my energy. And it's all about reprogramming your central nervous system to be able to show up for yourself in different ways.
Yes.
Learn
Yeah.
how to do this in different ways. So it's like you're not, because there's so much shame. We just go through so much shame. Like there's this voice in our head that very rarely do we ever question when it says, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
We just let it be there. We just
Yeah.
let it be and be like, oh, that's a really good question. I'm kind of messed up, aren't I?
So I want
We
that
just
brings
go
me
with that.
perfect to my next question, my next scenario of,
Yeah.
so, I mean, you came from a pretty conservative background
Yeah.
in some ways, in many ways.
Mhm.
And now you're in this, new age type,
Yes.
whatever they want to call it, which is to me, it's just
Whatever.
back to natural, right? We're just going back.
Exactly. That's what's so funny. Yeah.
It's so funny. So, what did you have to let go of? I mean, when you talk about, we talk about screaming, we're letting go of anger or frustration, and really, it's just again, it's an energy that just needs to go back out to the universe, and that's how I like to look at it. So, one of my shaman teachers taught me that, you know, like fertilizer and all that stuff is negative and likes negative energy. And so they're like, carbon dioxide, oxygen, we have that natural exchange.
Huh.
So when you're giving something back to the universe, it
Yeah.
likes more of we think everything has to be positive, but when you're giving back to the universe, that's what flourishes. Our voices, our positive voices, our singing to the Most High, our
Mm,
screaming to the Akashic records are doing that. It's giving back to the universe. And we think it's good or bad, but it isn't. It's just giving back. And it does with it what it does. Makes great wind, makes great whatever the universe does with what we give back. So it's kind
mm.
of a cool thing, I think.
Yeah,
But what did
I
you
agree.
have to do to let go of,
Mm,
because you had to let go of some very specific things in order
yeah.
to get to where you were at. How did you
Yeah.
go about that? What did you have to do? Share with us.
Well, when I first learned what I do now in coaching is so different than the thought habits that I was engaged in with Habit Finder. And there was a really specific point where I pivoted. And
Mhm.
the reason for that, well, I'll tell you what there was, and it's clear why, because we had I think you were there at the Habit Finder retreat when Tony Litster came and guided us in that breathwork exercise. I'd never done that before. I'd never had anything like that. I was really nervous, but the night before, I remember him saying, hey, your system wants healing. It wants harmony. And because it wants harmony within you, like it wants you to feel peace and calm, because of that, it's not going to dredge something up that you're not ready to deal with.
Yeah.
It'll maybe give you a peek at it so that you know it's there, but it's not going to force you to face it and work through it. And he said, you just kind of let yourself go with the breathing, and then some really cool things happen. Well, I did. I had a tremendously like life altering experience at the end of that breath work. I went somewhere that was very unexpected. And I had inner child work. I met this younger version of me. We had this beautiful, beautiful connection. And this experience that just taught me so much about myself. Well, the thing it did is it opened up and it gave me a glimpse of like, there's a lot of stuff in there. And I kind of want some help. So I contacted him later and hired him as my coach, and he taught me how to do this. And the reason was because there was so much stuff when I was a kid. I grew up in a really harsh environment and very, very rigid religious environment, very fundamentalist religion, high demand, and very conservative, but also very, well, for lack of a better it was really mean. And there was a physical abuse, emotional abuse. There was just a lot of that unsafe for a really, really long time. And that was just my childhood. I thought that I knew about it, so it wasn't repressed memories. So I figured, I'm fine. I can live my life. But what Tony did is it opened up a whole lot of things and it changed my trajectory. And what happened in the process of just the simple process of presence, breath, movement, and sound is in those exercises, I would land in me in a way that was just kind of like, well, there's nobody else here. It was just me in me, with me, talking to me about me. And it was this like, I'd never had that before. And it was a quiet place. And I'd never had that quiet before. And in the process of doing that, it's a really simple thing to just have a conversation of like, what do I need to let go? Where do I need to go next? What's right for me right now? What is my purpose? What is my meaning? And when you're in there and it's quiet, when you're actually inside, oh my goodness, it was like nothing I'd ever had. And there was inside me, there was love for me. And I didn't realize it until then that I had been, this sounds awful, but I had been hating myself
Mhm.
most of my life. And there was always this like energy of pushing, forcing success, forcing goodness, forcing relationships, and just making it happen because it had to be there. It had to be done. It had to be the right way. And when I got good at when I started experiencing and then I started getting really good at just going inside and being learning how to kind of quiet down the noise, find that emotional charge and kind of neutralize things with presence, breath, movement, and sound, all that stuff. And then just landing in this, there wasn't anything there to hold on to, let alone let go of. And it just naturally flowed that all of this expectation, all of this identity of I have to be this way or I'm bad just wasn't there anymore. It just didn't exist because in that space, it was just, I was everything.
So when
And
you learned to do that
yeah,
and basically letting go of those things, went to the next level of you were learning to radically accept yourself. And I don't mean just a little acceptance, but we can radically accept ourselves for exactly who we are. And when we do that, it's a kind of a tricky time
mhm,
because
mhm,
sometimes we lose friends.
yeah,
Sometimes our energy raises and there's people that don't necessarily like where we're going and and they're not accepting us as we're radically accepting ourselves.
yeah, yeah. And there has to be a commitment to going all the way. If you start that path, just keep leaning in because it's scary, it's messy,
Very scary.
it's really scary to think of those people who many of them are a part of you.
Yeah.
Many of them are a part of your identity. They've helped you become who you are and the goodness that you have in this life. And sometimes it can be really scary to consider it's time to let them go or time to let them let me go.
Right.
And if you're committed to the path of healing, then you learn pretty early on that it's worth leaning in even when it's terrifying. because your brain makes the connection really quickly that, hey, when we go through this really messy, the dark night of the soul, which funny thing is you don't just have one of those.
No,
You got lots of them throughout your life. And when you go through these, your brain makes the connection like, hey, when we do this, it's terrifying.
yeah,
It is the last thing we want to do is to step inside that dark room and face whatever's in there. But I know that I've done it before. And when I do this, I always end up on the other side of this with more access to me and more access to who I really am. And at the time that I started this stuff, I didn't even know who that was. I didn't know what that meant. I had a friend tell me one time, yeah, man, just keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
yeah.
Well, that's not as helpful as you think because I don't know who I am.
I don't know
Just
what
keep
I'm
being you.
doing. Yeah, it
Keep
is.
being you.
It's kind of like I like to use the analogy of, and I like roses because sometimes roses don't bloom and open all the way,
Yeah.
so they die on the vine. So those
Mhm.
are those of us that stagnate. We don't let go. We don't
Mm,
accept that we're fact or a rose or a flower, whatever it is. But when we
mm,
bloom, fully bloom, what happens? We bloom and the leaves and the petals eventually fall away, but inside is more seeds of who we really are that we expand and we
mm.
share, right?
Yeah.
So that's expansion. So I mean, of course, I always like had to come up with analogies that, as some people said, oh, you just like to make things work for yourself so you can rationalize and justify where you are. And I'm like, okay, and I'm
Yeah.
good at it,
Maybe.
and I'm damn good at it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Sounds
rationalize.
like a pretty amazing life, if you ask
And
me.
I'm actually going to start sharing my rationalizations and justifications
Yes.
with other people. So thank you for that one. So yeah, but I do. I feel it's like a flower that we bloom, and the petals are the people and situations, the stuff in our life that need to naturally go away, and they grow down and they become the fertilizer for the next. And we have seeds pods that go
Mm,
out and expand. And I think
mm.
each one of us are like that. So
Yeah, I
that's
like
my,
that.
when we radically accept who we are,
Mhm.
some people will fall away, and they are the leaves of our flowers. But
And more people come into your life too.
exactly, because you're spreading more seeds. And then what happens is after we accept ourselves, we start loving the flower that we are.
Yeah,
We start loving who we are,
yeah.
right? So
And
then,
there's an interesting thing that happens when we let go of things that our brain just naturally goes to. It freaks out a little bit because it perceives it as loss.
yeah,
And we can quantify what we're losing really easily. And what we have trouble with is quantifying what we'll gain by doing so,
yeah,
because that's kind of imaginary. But the loss, the perceived loss, is really clear. And so our brain is like, no, it starts clutching, it starts hanging on like for dear life. Like, we can't let this go. Who
yeah,
we are, or these people, or this opportunity, or this job, or this house, or whatever it looks like, we can't let
whatever
it
it
go
is.
because we're losing.
Yeah, our
But when
health.
we
They
recognize
hurt
that
our
that's
health.
what's happening,
Yeah,
what's that?
people do it with our health. They do it with their health.
Yes, yes,
They do. Yeah,
definitely. And when we can catch that,
yeah,
if we're adept at understanding those feelings and realizing, oh, I know what this is, then we can lean into letting go.
right.
And almost every single time you do, what you get back in return, what you gain from that is energetically way more than what you let go of. It just is because we're
Well, you're
growing and
accepting yourself, and then you're loving yourself. You're learning to really love yourself, right?
yeah,
And then when you
yeah,
do that, and then when you're in that state, then it's that much easier to be vulnerable, right? Because
yeah.
after you do that, right, we're vulnerable because we don't feel courageous enough to let the petals fall. But once
Yeah.
we understand that, the more we do that, when we realize it's our fertilizer, they're on their journey, each petal's doing their thing. It's easy for
Mm.
us to be vulnerable. So when did you feel the most vulnerable when you're going through this?
It never went away.
Oh, it doesn't go away. I mean, I had like two
No,
situations this week that I felt like, oh my God, okay, you have to be courageous. You just got to be vulnerable.
there's it's really kind of an interesting thing because when my coach first started teaching me how to do this presence, breath, movement, and sound, it was almost like, don't worry about what's going to come from this. Don't worry about what shows up. We don't need to explain it. We don't need to fix it. We don't need to understand why it's even here. What we want to do is just get really good at noticing that it is here. And so it was really neutral, really kind of an open, like, can we, whatever is going to be, whatever's here is here. And so when it's here, then we just get to kind of let go of the meaning making of like it's here because of, or I'm experiencing this because this happened in the past or because I want this in the future. We can let go of it and just be really present.
Right. So we
And
can
the
let go of the
present,
blame game. That's where the blame game comes in, right? I'm here because blaming a situation or a person or whatever,
yeah.
right?
And attachment too. There's a lot of attachment that comes
Attachment,
with
tons
like
of attachment.
attaching this, like hanging on to the outcome that you expect from this. If it's a good thing, like I'm going to get this job, I'm going to make this much money, and I'm going to have these many cool opportunities and these many things, the boat and a RV and like all these, this kind of house, and attaching to that outcome
Yeah,
is really dangerous actually,
very
because it just sets
dangerous.
us up for, even if it all plays out,
It
we're
doesn't.
never, we're never right here. We're always thinking of what's next and where we need to be
Right,
next.
right.
It's just too much of that. So this vulnerability, it's right hand in hand with the letting go of the expectations and the things of what I had to let go and what I'm continually learning to let go is vulnerability. Like when you let go, I love vulnerability because for me it's almost, it's like imagining like a medieval knight with all this armor, right? And when all the armor's on and the shield is there and the weapon's out there for a fight, that's not vulnerability. That's protecting, that's guarding against whatever's going to come at you. Vulnerability would be dropping the shield and the sword, taking all the armor off, exposing yourself to the possibility of being harmed, which doesn't sound very nice when you think about vulnerability as exposing yourself to the possibility of being harmed. But what happens also is the freedom of movement, the ability to go into places that you couldn't go with all the armor and do things and have the relationships, have the closeness and all this possibility that comes with vulnerability alongside what the possibility of being really hurt. And yeah, I mean, we go through stuff, we do that. But when I look at the relationships that I've had that are really, really close, even the ones that ended abruptly or painfully, I would much rather have the joy and the love and the closeness and the memories of that beautiful experience, even if it ended painfully,
The dance.
than to be closed off and cold
Yeah,
for my existence and not have any of that,
right,
just in a way of protecting me from that pain.
right.
And so learning to let go of my expectations of what I should be, what this life should give me, of the things that I own or don't own, it's not this easy thing. And it's not like I'm saying like I am so enlightened, like I'm free of everything. I because I still have my stuff. I still have things that I don't expect. Like I can feel totally completely healed. And I know that there are still parts that I just haven't accessed yet
Yeah.
that need some work, that need healing. And it's a lot of why I started the coaching that I do and created this program. And the program is called the Pathfinder program, Pathfinder group, because we're all like when I first started and I didn't know, but I needed to find a way through what I was dealing with inside.
So that's what you're doing. So there's your purpose. So now you've come and you're finding your purpose. So talk about your Pathfinder group. Talk about that. Tell
So
us
the
about
group,
that, how it came about and what you're going to be doing and when you're going to
yeah,
start. Talk about that because this is like, as we start going through this, you've said such a great example of literally working towards your purpose, working
yeah,
towards what it, and and our purpose can change. I mean, it can change all the time. I mean, I've had you painter, we've had 4 careers. I've had a lot of different changes in my life, and each
yeah,
one has taken me to another level. And I would not
mm,
give up any of those or say that I had to be on this linear path.
yeah,
It just each one
yeah,
served a great purpose in my life. And fortunately, I'm loving it that each one is helping more people, is reaching out to others, which is cool. So talk about your pathway, your program, because that's your purpose.
Yes. And it's an interesting concept with purpose. I want to touch on that just a little bit,
Okay.
and then I'll explain what you're asking. Purpose to me was something I had to let go of,
Okay.
which is really interesting because most of my life I was told what my purpose was and told what I needed to do to fulfill
Oh,
that purpose.
love it.
And so I worked hard and I pushed and I made things happen, and it wasn't giving me the results that I've been taught that to believe that were supposed to be there. And a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of like it was messy. And then and it caused a lot of pain in my relationships. In fact, I have four daughters, three of whom are moved out and they're living their lives and they're amazing people. And I was talking with my oldest about the past. And I told her, I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry about some of the ways I showed up for you when you were younger." And I said, "I'm not going to waste any time, either of our time, wishing I could go back and change that. All of my effort is going to be in showing up as the best version of myself with you that I can. And back then, you got the least healed version of me.
That is
And
the
I
only
showed up in ways that just weren't healthy. It was all out of love and out of my understanding of love and out of what I felt my purpose was and what I was supposed to be doing. I had this weird belief. I say weird kind of tongue in cheek, but that I had to raise my kids to be good people. I had to make sure that I did everything I could to make them good. And it wasn't until I decided to get out of their way and focus on just creating a place for them to thrive, to find themselves, that we started having some really great relationships. Like where we are now is amazing. So, purpose was something that was kind of a mean word for me.
okay, cool.
And I had to let that go and just be still, to
Yeah.
be okay just existing. And if I could be okay just being me and be really okay with that and actually love that space in that stillness and the quietness, well, then everything started to blossom and really grow for me. And only now am I in this place of picking up the purpose again and saying, hey, this isn't a mean thing. It's not this sharp
Yeah.
cutting thing that used to be. Now it's actually something that it's a, I don't know, it's a cause
Yeah.
that I can grab a hold of and I can pour energy into and watch it
Yeah.
flourish and grow, just like gardening.
Find something that's super important to you.
Yeah. And so that cause is I want to help people find their way
Nice.
through the same stuff that I found. I stumbled into this and I'm so grateful that I did. And now I'm in a place where I can actually send this message out there and I can attract more people to this because the world needs this stuff. We need this
Does.
stuff. I need this stuff. And so the program, coming into the program of what this purpose is and what I'm sharing with my purpose and holding on to and really thriving in is to create a place for people to come. It's a circle of embrace. That's what this is. It's not this lecture where people come in and then they listen to me tell them what to do and they're better off for it.
Yeah.
I'll guide through exercises and I'll show things that you may not know or people may not know or whatever, but there's things that we can do and tools that I can give and you can have them in your toolkit. But it's coming together. It's sharing our voice. Like you and all of your life and all of your living have created this amazing tapestry of beautiful, like there's pain there, there's suffering, there's also joy and unimaginable happiness, and all of it coming together to bless and uplift the lives of everyone in this circle of embrace. Like we get to learn from each other. It's a mentorship program, but we all mentor each other. And doing this, yeah, we're going to actually touch on the four main, most common blocks that come up. We touched on this at the very beginning of our conversation, where it's like this, like, well, it's funny because whenever I make a list, even if it's just four items, there's something in my brain that says you're going to forget one of them, and I almost always do. Which is so funny. It doesn't matter how much I know them and how well versed I am in the backwards and frontwards of all of them. But there's four main things we're going to work on in this program. Yes, yes, exactly. Like you know the process. You wrote the cheat sheet of what kind of questions are all this stuff. But there's this interesting thing. So in this mentorship group, in this mentorship, the Pathfinder group, we're going to be focused on four main blocks. And those blocks are the fear of being seen, like actually being witnessed, being recognized, being talked about, all these things that come. Like there's a fear that holds us back from opportunities. And we know it does, and it's there. But what we don't know usually is how do we deal with that? How do we move through that to where we can actually feel safe being seen, not just push yourself into this uncomfortable situation, but be safe being seen. The other one is going to be the fear of making the wrong choice, like that paralysis, right? Like, I've got these things. I want to do this. I want to touch these people's lives, and I want to do this. Where do I go? I don't know what to do, and so you end up doing nothing. And what that translates into is just not being able to trust yourself, and that's kind of painful. That's really painful when you realize what you're missing out on because of that.
Oh, the
And again,
trust. Yeah, it's again not making yourself vulnerable, not loving
yeah,
yourself, not accepting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, in this process, I'm going to give specific tools on how to move through it to where you actually feel safe making choices, not just forcing yourself to do something and hope and pray that it turns out the right way. And if it does, then you learned a really valuable lesson. If it doesn't,
Oh,
well, we start over again.
that's a good
But
story to
it's
tell.
learning to
Yeah.
find safety. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The other one is going to be the fear of losing control. And we
Oh,
talked a little bit like if we make enough money, if we make all this stuff, we'll go in that direction, we're going to do something that's going to screw it all up. We're going to get swept away in this and we're going to lose control and then we won't be able to hang on to any of it. And it stops us from taking action, stops us moving. So, again, specific tools that are so simple that you can keep in your kit. So, when you feel these things come up, you can employ these tools and get to a safe place of realizing, hey, success is inevitable. The relationships, the opportunities, the money, the life that I've always wanted, it's inevitable when I do these things and I'm still going to be me when I get there.
yeah.
And then the fourth one, the very last one that we'll work on in this Pathfinder mentorship group is the fear of not being enough. The interesting thing about the fear of not being enough, like there's so much with that, the fear that there's something fundamentally flawed about me, so I'm never going to get there. I'm not good enough to fit in. I'm not strong enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not smart enough.
Love that. I'm so that is one when I was in therapy after my second divorce. That was one of the instructors. That's my therapist. She's like, you are enough. And I had to do a whole exercise on just I am enough. And the funny thing is, that is, making myself vulnerable. That is definitely one of my things. I always feel like I'm never enough. And I'm writing a song, Am I Enough? We talked about
Mm,
singing and stuff. So I'm like, and I'm stuck on it. That's my idea, but I write this little poem and stuff. And, I just want the ending to be, I have to let go of the outcome and just see but I want there to be a song that says, Am I enough?
I love it.
So I
I
love this.
Yeah. And these are just four of the most common. I mean, we could go all over the place with any of these, but I think that these four main fears are at the root of so many of the problems that we face. There's nuance and there's experience and there's different circumstances with each of these and how they play out in our lives, but these tend to be the most common ones that I run into for myself, but also with my clients and the experience of these things kind of showing up. So in this group, we're just going to be doing this presence, breath, movement, and sound. I call them dropping in. We do these drop in exercises.
Love it.
And we employ all of those, all four of those, to get inside, to do the work we're going to do, and then to come back out and then process a little bit about what our experience was. And they're simple little things. And it trains your nervous system, excuse me, and it connects your brain to the outcome of, oh, there's safety on the other side of this discomfort. There's a there's an experience I had that fits with this process so well. I I took my daughters to Disneyland, and my youngest was 9 or 10 at the time. And this was her first time ever being on the big people rides, right? So she could go on any of the rides in the park now because she was tall enough and big enough she could fit on these rides. It was fine. They didn't even measure her. Well, we got there at a time where there weren't very many people, and we saw the Splash Mountain ride. If you've ever been on the Splash Mountain ride, it's just it kind of winds you around in this little boat, and you're on the water, and you see this whole story, and it winds around. And at the at the very end, you come out in this beautiful view of the park, and you plummet to your death. At least that's how it feels.
Yeah.
And you're like there, and like, oh, this is like, oh, and then you just drop so fast. So we did this ride, but there weren't very many people. So we ran past the part of the line where you watch people do that.
Oh, so you didn't prepare.
So we didn't prepare her at all.
Oh,
And I wasn't aware that we didn't prepare her. So we do this ride. And you know, they snap a picture at the most terrifying point, and then afterwards you can go and you can see on the screens your log or your boat and see your family there. And so we're looking at this like, oh, there's me, there's my daughters, there's my wife, there's oh, and my youngest has this look of complete terror on her face. I'm like, oh, no. And then I realize she's hugging her older sister's leg, just crying, like terrified, shaking and crying. And I'm like, we just traumatized this kid so terribly. So I picked her up
yeah.
and we walked outside, and there's the little Winnie the Pooh gift shop out there. And the family goes in there, and I sat on the bench with my youngest daughter and in an attempt to kind of calm her down. And I sat down and I got down on her level and I said, hey, what are you feeling right now? And she was quiet for a second. And then she said, Dad, I felt like I was going to fall out of that ride. And I said, oh my goodness, that is exactly what that feels like.
Yeah.
I've never heard it put into words, but that is exactly what it is. And I said, that's a great way to explain that. And that's exactly what that feels like. Did you know that Disney, when they made that ride, they spent millions of dollars to create a ride that makes you feel like you're going to fall out of it, but you don't. And she looked at me and her eyes got really wide and she goes, why? Why would they do that? And I laughed and I said, that is a great question. And I'll tell you why. Because when you can feel really, really scared and know that you're safe, well, then it changes because right now you're feeling like that was awful. It was terrifying. I never want to go do that again. And I'm going to avoid any other ride out there that feels like this. She goes, yeah, yeah, that's what I feel like. And I said, but think about it. If you can calm down a little bit and just notice inside, if you knew that going off that edge, you weren't going to fall out of the ride, even though it felt like you were, changes a little bit, doesn't it? Now you get to look at it and say, huh, what happens if I let go? Because I'm not going to fall out of the ride. If I let go, what happens now? What do I learn about myself? If I do it over and over and over again, does it get less? Do I feel more? What is it that I can learn? So instead of a signal that says, run away as fast as you can, now it's a signal that says, ooh, interesting. There's something to learn here. And so, this whole process of using the body, harnessing the body's natural functions, of tapping in and feeling what we feel and being like, whoa, I'm feeling a lot and I'm safe. What can I learn from this? What is going to shift for me? And everything changes when you can understand that, when you can feel that. And that's what this is for: presence, breath, movement, and sound, to get into those feelings of like, wait a second. I'm not in danger.
Oh,
I'm not being damaged. I'm feeling a lot, but I'm just in my living room. I'm on a Zoom with Brandon and some other really amazing people, and we're learning about feelings. And that process rewires, reconditions your central nervous system to understand how to quickly get to that calm, quiet space inside. No matter what the storm is out there, there's no longer a storm inside.
yeah.
You
I
may
call
not know what's around the corner, but
that.
you'll know that when I get there, I'm gonna be there, and
Yeah,
I trust me.
that's awesome. That is awesome. I call that the in between. I love it.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Uh,
love it.
so yeah, we're starting this on this particular one. We're going to have more of these, but this particular one is going to be on the 26th of this month.
Yeah.
That's a Wednesday. It is at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 Mountain Time, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And
How can
there
they
are
get hold
six
of you,
sessions.
Brandon? I mean, I'm going to post this on Facebook and you can go to my
Yeah.
YouTube. You can always, message me. I'll give you Brandon's information, but how can they get a hold of you?
One of the easiest ways is just 40freedoms.com. So 40freedoms.com. And that just there's some work that I want to do on my website, but it's a placeholder and it has a link that you can actually book a call with me
Yeah.
and we can have a conversation. I can answer any questions that you have. And if this is something that you want to be a part of, like if you can, like this podcast, I love this. I love this conversation, this connection. And anyone who's listening right now, whether it's live or whether it's a recording or way down the years down the road, whatever it is, if anything kind of stirred inside, then come to 40freedoms.com and let's have a conversation because there's just too much that holds us back unnecessarily. And I'll tell you, the solution to this is a whole lot easier than we've been taught to believe. It's so different than what we thought it was going to be.
Well, and
And
I
it's
can tell
simple.
you, Brandon is one of the safest people I know to talk to.
Mm.
One of the very safest people. He knows how to hold space, he knows to ask questions, very loving. Just I always feel so comfortable being able to expose my entire self to Brandon.
Mm. Mm. Thank you. That means a lot. And that's a hard won skill. And and it's worth everything I ever had to go through to get there. And I know that there's some natural gifts and talents with holding space, helping people feel comfortable, but it's taken many, many years of this kind of work to realize that I can be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like that I am good at that and that I can use that to help people and I can use it to help me. And it's I do all the time. And there's so much to do still. Like that's the whole thing about this is like creating a program like this. It's not me saying like, hey guys, I figured this out.
Yeah.
So come to me and I'm going to show you what I figured out. And you're going to be as cool as I am. That's so laughably funny to me because I'm still figuring this stuff out. I'm still doing it. I'm still trying things. I'm still learning things about myself and exposing parts of me inside that I didn't know that there was still stuff in there, which has told me that like even if I can't see anything, like I feel so complete and whole and healed, I know there's more in there.
Yeah.
And so I keep leaning into those spaces. And every time I do, I go through these big waves of emotion, but I land on the other side with having more access to myself. I can see more, I can hold more space, and I can just find me a little bit better every time. And that's what I want to help people with. I want to
Yeah.
help you find you
I always say
a
that
little bit more.
the best coaches, the best therapists, the best teachers have always been the best students. They're not the tellers. And the best coaches are the ones and therapists who that have been through stuff. They
Yeah.
they they get it. And when you find
Yeah.
somebody that's walked through it, before, like April was one of my very first coaches, and I called her, I continue to call her my pointer coach. She just
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
had a way of pointing me in a direction that I need to go. She's the one that found Habit Finder. And at the
Oh,
time,
yeah.
she was a business coach, but I didn't need a business coach. I needed a life coach. And she ended up being
Mm,
my life coach. And she was, and at the time that I met her years and years ago, she held her cards very close to her chest. She did not talk about her stuff at all. Her teaching was don't share those things. But it wasn't
mm,
until she shared with me certain things that I was able to let go because I'm like, you understand. Like one of the
mm,
exercises she had me do was we talked about, divorcing and stuff, was
mm.
she said, take a picture of your office. And I was like, do what? You want me to do what? Take a picture of your office. And I'm like, no. Oh. And
No.
like, what did your desk look like? And I'm like, There's no, no. So I finally humbled myself, made myself vulnerable, and I literally went in the bathroom and threw up afterwards because it exposed the mess that was in my head. I mean, it was literally the mess. There was no, and I'm a cluttery person. I mean, my desk is pretty cluttery and stuff, but it was like a
Yeah.
mess. We're disorganized, this, that. And she was just like, okay, we're going to start here, and it was those little things that she walked me through, so that she really helped
Yeah.
with those things. And I had to learn to clean, and I realized then, we talk about that exercise that Dave has us do about walking into your brain and things are flying all
Mm.
over the place and your thoughts are
Yeah.
going crazy. And my thoughts were always crazy. So I had to learn how to calm that down. Sometimes it was cleaning my exterior so that my interior could calm down. It was,
Yeah.
she did an
Oh,
amazing job, an amazing, amazing job. But it wasn't until she shared with me some of her pain that I trusted her enough to listen to
yeah.
it. So I
Yeah.
think those of us that have had pain and had stuff, we get it, man. We get it.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah. There's something interesting that happens with suffering. Suffering, suffering just opens up the ability to feel empathy
Yeah,
because this human experience and understanding what this even is, it's full of suffering.
yeah,
There's also joy, there's also happiness, there's also excitement, enthusiasm, and wonder and curiosity. And there's a lot of suffering.
yeah.
I joke, I
But it's
joke
still
around.
an experience, right? But it's still
Yeah,
just an experience
it's just
that we
experience.
label, but it's just an
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. And the funny thing, I joke around about this with people sometimes, like this thing called life, we're all gonna die trying to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah,
Because we're never gonna actually get there. We're all just making it up as we go and finding the things that make sense for what it is right now with me. What does this mean to me? Well, I can figure that out. I can figure that out. And it's for me. And then I can help other people find their own,
yeah,
whatever that is.
yeah.
Connect with you, find you, learn to show up in different ways for yourself. And the whole world changes. Everything shifts.
And that's what we do is we help people find themselves and
Yeah.
heal themselves. We don't do anything. We just hold space.
Yeah.
And
My coach that taught me this to beginning with, he said the whole purpose of development, the whole purpose of learning and growing is to learn to occur to oneself differently and challenge that and really listen in to that. Like, whoa, what if it's different than I think it is? What if I'm different than I thought I was? And what comes up if I do that? What's possible if I let go of this and pick up that? Let's try.
so many lives to live.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
lives. Well, Brandon, 40 Freedoms, go to 40freedoms.com.
Mhm.
I highly encourage you to schedule a talk with Brandon.
Mhm.
Highly encourage you to do that. He is absolutely amazing. I guarantee you, you will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed. So go there, reach out to him because he's amazing, absolutely amazing. And I want
Mm.
to thank
Thank you.
you for being here with me as I continue to build my little podcast area
Yeah.
consistently as I do, but we just keep rocking on.
I love it. I have thoroughly enjoyed this connection and just watching you do these things. Like you're actually making it happen. Like I've wanted to do some of these things
Um,
for so long and I haven't taken action on it. And all of a sudden I realize, wait, you have a podcast? That sounds amazing. Tell me more about that. And you're like, well, I want you on my podcast. I'm like, I would love that. That sounds great.
yeah, be on it. It's not,
So
yeah. Yeah, we don't,
this has inspired me.
yeah, good.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad. You've inspired me. You've reached out so many times, and that's what
Mm.
it's about, helping each other, just
Yeah.
reaching out and working together, and we're all here doing the same thing. So
Yeah, we're
it's
all trying to figure it out. We're
yeah,
all we're all just scared little boys and scared little girls trying to use the tools we've been given to create something
exactly,
amazing.
exactly. Sometimes it's trying to figure out how to use those tools.
Yeah, exactly. Without cutting your finger off or whatever else
Something or
happens.
whatever it is. Yeah. But
Oh, that's awesome.
well, I just want to thank you so much, and I look
Thank
forward to
you.
many more conversations with you. And I will be there March 26th.
Okay.
So come
Looking forward to
talk to him, reach out to Brandon, and join us as Brandon leads us through
it.
all getting rid of those things. Like I am enough.
Yes.
We'll be
Yes.
working on that one. So
Fair enough. And it's a really cool thing. It's a really simple process to get to that place where it's like, whoa, I
uh,
am enough.
I'm definitely looking forward to that one because there's that other one I shared with you about community. So there'll be some
Uh,
good opportunities there. So
nice. Good.
uh,
I'm looking forward to
all
it.
of
Thank
us.
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And just, I love you
Okay.
so much. And I'm so proud of you and so happy for you. And you are just leading the charge.
I love you. Thank you.
You are
This
amazing.
is a wonderful reminder. That's what I love about these connections is it reminds us both of, wow, we're doing okay.
Yeah, we are doing
Doing
okay.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're doing okay. So thank you so much. I'm going to
Thank
just
you.
stop the recording.